Before we start, make sure we don't lose you in the dark. Subscribe, like this video, and leave a comment to show you are here. Dating in your 30s is hell. Not because of the loneliness, though that's part of it, but because every swipe feels like a game of Russian roulette. You don't know if you're meeting a future partner or someone who will ruin your life in 30 minutes or less. So when Adam matched with me last fall, I didn't expect anything. Just another generic profile. Clean-shaven, symmetrical face, short answers, nothing cringy. He was attractive but normal enough to feel safe. I had zero expectations when I agreed to meet him. That was my first mistake. We picked a bar in Midtown, public, bright, busy. I thought I was being cautious. When I showed up, he was already sitting at a corner booth with a drink waiting for me. He looked exactly like his photos, which for a Tinder date is already suspicious. Same leather jacket, same pale blue eyes. But up close, something felt off. Like his skin was too smooth, his hair too perfect. He greeted me with a handshake that was ice cold and dry, like he'd just stepped out of a freezer. "You're even prettier in person," he said, smiling. But his smile didn't touch his eyes. It felt rehearsed. We talked. Or rather, I talked. He mostly listened. He asked a lot of personal questions. Where I lived, if I had roommates, what hours I worked, whether I had family nearby. I chalked it up to nerves or maybe just being awkward. But something about how he watched me made the hairs on my arms rise. Like he wasn't listening because he cared, but because he was memorizing every detail. At one point, I excused myself to the bathroom just to breathe. I texted my best friend Jenna, joking that this guy was either a serial killer or just really bad at dating. She sent back the knife emoji. We laughed about it later. For a while, when I came back to the table, he had a second drink waiting for me. I hadn't ordered it. "Figured you'd want another," he said. I pretended to take a sip, but didn't. Something about his confidence had shifted. He was leaning in closer now, his eyes not blinking as much. When I tried to steer the conversation toward more neutral ground, movies, music, he didn't respond, just stared. "You have a very symmetrical face," he said suddenly. "I like symmetry. It's hard to find someone who matches so well." I laughed awkwardly and said thanks, already planning my exit strategy. He didn't laugh with me, just nodded, as if confirming something. I told him I had an early morning and should head out. He offered to walk me to my car. I said no thanks. He insisted. I refused again. That's when something changed in his face. A flicker of frustration quickly buried. He stood up slowly and said, "Maybe next time then." I nodded, grabbed my coat and left. When I got to my car, I locked the doors before turning the engine. I didn't see him follow me, but I felt something, like eyes burning into the back of my skull as I drove away. I told myself I was being paranoid. I was wrong. The next morning, I woke up to a message from Adam. "Had fun last night. Hope you got home safe." Pretty normal, right? Except I never told him I was going home. I told him I had an early morning and left. I didn't say where I was going. Still, I tried not to read too much into it. Maybe he was just being polite. Maybe he assumed. I replied with a short, "Thanks," and left it there. I wasn't planning on seeing him again. That should have been the end. It wasn't. 2 nights later, I came home around 10 after grabbing dinner with co-workers. My apartment was quiet. Lights were off. Nothing seemed out of place until I went into the kitchen and saw the glass of water. Full, sitting on the counter. I never leave water out, ever. I live alone. At first, I thought maybe I forgot, maybe I'd filled it and walked away. But something about it bothered me. The shape of the glass. It wasn't one of mine. Mine are clear. This one had a slight blue tint to it. I checked the door. Locked. Checked the windows. All secure. Still, I barely slept. The next day, I changed the locks and told myself it was just me being on edge. Paranoia. That word became my daily mantra. That weekend, I went to the farmer's market like I always do. I bought fruit, bread, coffee. I didn't see him, but I felt him. That's not a metaphor. I felt him behind me in the crowd. I turned fast. Just people. A couple walking a dog. A woman checking out tomatoes. A teenager on his phone. No Adam. But my skin crawled the rest of the day. Then came the photos. It started small. An envelope in my mailbox with no return address. Inside, a single photo of me leaving work. The next week, another. This time from inside my car, taken through the windshield while I waited at a red light. The week after that, one of me sleeping. I sat on the floor staring at it for an hour, my hands shaking, wondering if it was real. I didn't remember taking it. No angle made sense unless someone had been inside. Again. That night I slept with a knife under my pillow. I didn't call the police, I should have. But what would I say? That a guy I met on Tinder might be stalking me because he's too symmetrical and my glassware doesn't match? I stopped going out. I canceled plans. I kept the lights on. Every creak of the building sent adrenaline flooding my veins. My life shrank down to a loop of work and lock checks and barely there meals. Then one night, as I lay in bed half awake, I heard something. Not outside. Not from the hallway. Inside my apartment. It was faint. A breath. A whisper. Just under the hum of the heater. I reached for the knife but froze when I saw the bedroom door slowly swing open. It moved inch by inch as if pushed by the lightest pressure. I couldn't scream. Couldn't move. A shadow slipped inside, tall and still. He didn't speak. Just stood there, watching me like a painting watches a wall. Then he said, "I knew you'd look better in real life." I blinked. When I opened my eyes again, the room was empty. The door still. No sign of him. I wanted to believe it was sleep paralysis, a nightmare. But I knew better. Because the next morning there was a single hair on the doorknob. Blonde. Not mine. The next day I called the police. I didn't care if I sounded insane. I showed them the photos, the strange glass, the message. They took notes, asked routine questions, told me to stay with someone if I felt unsafe. I asked if they could trace the number from Adam's messages, and they promised to file a request. But the look the officer gave me made it clear. This wasn't going to be a priority. I asked if anything stood out about the photos. He looked again and said, "They're printed from film. That's not common anymore." Something about that chilled me. It meant whoever was doing this wasn't just snapping pictures on a phone. He was developing them, planning, taking time. I called Jenna and begged to stay with her for a few nights. She agreed without hesitation. The first night at her place, I slept a little better. Second night, I felt almost normal. But on the third night, she knocked on my door at 2:30 a.m. holding her phone. "Did you go outside just now?" I said no, still groggy. She handed me her phone. It was connected to her doorbell cam. The footage showed a man standing just off the porch light's edge, not moving, not knocking. just staring at the door for 10 solid minutes before turning and walking away. His face never showed, but the shape of his shoulders, his stillness, I knew. Jenna said we needed to call the cops again, but I told her it wouldn't help. I could feel it. This wasn't going to stop with a police report. So I started digging. I looked back at his Tinder profile, tried to reverse search his photos. Nothing came up. I used facial recognition tools, no matches. I uploaded the photo to a Reddit thread about scams. A user messaged me privately, said the face looked familiar, that a girl in Seattle had posted about a similar guy a few months ago. Her story ended with her deleting all her posts and vanishing offline. I kept looking, found another mention on a true crime blog. Same face, same name, different city. The thread was old, but one comment stood out. It said, "Don't look for him, he finds you." I didn't sleep that night. Jenna stayed with me. We locked every door, every window. But around 4 a.m., I heard something that didn't belong in an apartment. A humming, like an old film projector spinning up. Faint, mechanical, distant but inside. Jenna didn't hear it. I walked room to room until I found it. In the hallway closet, tucked beneath the water heater, sat a black box. Not mine. It had a red light blinking slowly. I didn't touch it. I just stared. Then the light went out. My phone buzzed. A text from Adam. No words, just a photo. It showed me standing in the hallway looking down at the box. Taken seconds ago. That's when I realized he wasn't just watching. He was inside the walls. And I had no idea how long he'd been there. I left Jenna's apartment before sunrise. I didn't even wait for her to wake up. I couldn't risk putting her in danger, not after the hallway photo, not after realizing he was in the walls. I drove aimlessly for hours, then booked a cheap roadside motel under a fake name. It didn't make me feel safer. It just made me feel isolated. I didn't check my messages. I didn't post anything. I turned off location services and used cash for everything. Still, when I entered the room, there was a folded napkin on the nightstand. 5 words written in blue ink. "This won't help you hide." My legs gave out. I slid down the wall and stared at that napkin like it had teeth. He wasn't tracking my phone. He was ahead of me. I was playing catch-up in a game I didn't even understand. I needed answers. I went back to that Reddit user who'd messaged me weeks ago. Their account was deleted, but I'd saved their username. I did a deep search, found old threads they'd posted in. That led me to a locked Discord group. I joined using a burner account. After hours of silent watching, someone finally DM'd me. Username F33D3R. They asked if I'd seen the man in my dreams yet. I didn't respond. They sent another message. They always dream of the projector before he arrives. He shows you the version of him you'll trust most. I asked them who he was. They said, "No one knows. He wears faces. He learns you." Dating apps gave him a highway. I didn't want to believe it. I couldn't. But somewhere deep in my gut, I already did. This wasn't some tech-savvy psycho. This was something older, smarter. I asked F33D3R how to stop him. They replied, "You can't block something that isn't digital. You have to trap it." Before I could respond, their profile vanished mid-chat. I was alone again. That night I dreamt of the projector for the first time. In the dream, I stood in an endless black room, walls pulsing like veins. A screen lit up in front of me, flickering grainy footage. First, it showed me as a child, then as a teenager, then last week at the bar with Adam. Then it showed me sleeping in this motel room. Then it showed him standing over me, whispering something I couldn't hear. I woke up gasping. The air smelled like dust and iron. I checked every inch of the room, then packed up and drove again. This time I went home. Not because it was safe, but because I had nowhere left. Inside my apartment, I found no signs of a break-in, no new messages. But I could feel the walls breathing. I covered every mirror, taped my phone camera, slept in the bathtub with a hammer, and for 2 days nothing happened. Then, on the third night, I found something new, carved into the underside of my mattress in perfect handwriting. I'm inside you now. And the worst part, I believed it. I stopped eating. Not because I wanted to, but because everything started tasting like dust. I stopped answering calls. I stopped recognizing my own voice in voicemails. I covered my TV, unplugged my laptop, taped every vent and crack in the apartment. I sat for hours in silence, waiting for something to happen and terrified that nothing would. Then, one morning I woke up and my phone was gone. Not stolen. Placed face up on the kitchen table, screen cracked down the middle like it had been crushed and carefully returned. There was a single photo left in the gallery. It was me, sleeping, mouth slightly open, eyes twitching behind lids. Time stamped for 3:17 a.m. I checked the door, still locked. Checked the windows, still shut. The mirrors I had covered were untouched, but on one of them, beneath the paper, something had been written in red marker. Thank you for showing me who you really are. I didn't remember writing it. I didn't own that marker. That day I drove to a church. Any church, didn't matter which. I told the priest I thought I was being followed by something not human. I didn't give details. He prayed over me, gave me a small cross, and told me to find light in the shadows. It sounded poetic, but not helpful. I didn't need faith. I needed to make him leave. So I tried the only thing I hadn't. I matched with him again. I made a new Tinder profile. New name. New photos. And I swiped until I found him. Not the same name, not the same photo, but the same eyes. He always had the same eyes. I messaged first this time. We've met before. You remember me? No response. Until 3 hours later. I remember all of you. You're my favorite. That night I invited him to my apartment. Not because I wanted to, but because I needed to see if I could force him into a trap. I salted the thresholds. I placed mirrors opposite each other. I lit candles. I downloaded old rituals from obscure forums. I read them out loud in the dark, voice shaking. When the knock came at midnight, I opened the door. He stood there smiling, wearing a different face. A face I'd once trusted. A teacher I'd admired as a teenager. I blinked, and the face shifted. My ex, then my father, then back to Adam. You're ready now, he said. You see me clearly. I stepped back and said the words I'd memorized. He laughed, not cruelly, softly, like a parent humoring a child. You think this is about possession? He asked. About control? He walked past the salt like it wasn't there. He looked into the mirrors and his reflection rippled but never stopped. This is about attention, and you gave it to me. You fed me, I screamed. Threw the mirror at him. It shattered against the floor, but he didn't flinch. I don't need to be inside your walls, he said. You brought me in when you let me see you. You invited me when you shared your story. He leaned in so close I could feel the cold radiating from his skin again. I don't need a body. I just need to be real to you. And with that, he disappeared. Not vanished, just blinked out like a signal lost. I stood in silence for what felt like hours. Then I opened my laptop and searched for his face again. Nothing. Not a single trace. It was like he'd never existed. But when I turned on the webcam, I wasn't alone in the frame. He wasn't behind me. Not physically, not in the room. But I saw him in the camera, just over my shoulder. A flicker, a frame, like the old film footage he'd shown me in the dream. I turned fast. Nothing. I checked every wall, every corner. I took apart the closet, pulled up floorboards. Nothing. But when I sat back down and looked at the screen again, he was there. No motion, just standing, like he was part of the wallpaper now. And that's when it clicked. He didn't want to hurt me. Not in the traditional way. He didn't need to, because fear is more powerful when it lingers, when it becomes a habit. And he knew I'd never trust what I saw again, that every screen, every reflection, every photo would become suspect, that I'd start seeing his face in the crowd, in the shadows, in strangers. And I did. At work, I saw a man in the hallway with his exact posture. At the grocery store, a cashier's smile was just slightly too symmetrical. In the park, a jogger waved at me, and I swear his voice matched Adam's. I stopped going out again. I stopped looking at myself in the mirror. I stopped answering the door. But the worst part came when I realized I couldn't remember the sound of my own voice without hearing his underneath it. It started as an echo, then a murmur. Then one night I looked into the black screen of my turned-off TV and saw myself blink out of sync. That version of me smiled. I moved to a new city, threw away every device, changed my name, no dating apps, no digital presence. I wanted silence. I thought maybe if I starved the attention, he'd fade. And for a while, he did. I got a job at a bookstore, made small talk with real people, slept, ate, almost forgot. Until I got a handwritten note slipped into the return slot one rainy afternoon. It read, "You forgot to swipe back." No signature, no return address. Just those words in that same clean, looping script I'd seen under my mattress. I burned the note, locked the doors, sat in the dark for hours. Sometimes I think he's gone. Sometimes I convince myself it was all trauma. A psychological break, a nervous collapse under too much stress. But then the phone rings. A number I don't recognize. I don't answer. I never do. But I still check the voicemails. And every now and then I hear breathing. Just breathing, slow, steady, close. And then a whisper. Still my favorite. That's when I remember. This story doesn't end when you stop listening. It ends when you stop believing. And I never stopped.